boys? What's good? It's Herm, and I'm back today with my fourth mock draft video of the 2022 NBA draft season, and we are coming up on the NBA Finals. So this is the Finals edition because we just started the NBA Finals here, and we're getting a clearer picture of what most teams' offseason kind of looks like. I think, with a lot of rumors flying around, a lot of teams being done, a lot of kind of turmoil at some places, it's giving us a better picture of what they might look to do in the draft, how they might address their needs, and what they're going to do there. So I'm going to break down the whole first round. I'm going to give you all 30 picks and why I think their fits there, why I think they should draft them, and go into detail on that. But before I get into it, think about subscribing. It's free, it's easy. If you don't want the content, you can always unsubscribe later, that's fine. But the first few picks probably aren't going to shock you, the first three, but without further ado, let's get into it. So with the first pick in the 2022 NBA Draft, the Orlando Magic select Jabari Smith Jr. out of Auburn. This is one that's being reported. Chet is also being reported at 2. I'll spoil that a little bit. But Jabari, it looks like the Magic are kind of honing in on him as their pick here. 19 years old, is a freshman, 6'10", 210 pounds. The big archetypes I kind of peg him as is a floor spacing forward, probably the best shooter in this draft class as a power forward, and a really good perimeter defender. He can guard positions 1 through 4 pretty easily. He needs to work on his post defense, but it'll get there. His ability to space the floor as well as finish inside is really impressive. Honestly, reminds me a lot of a former Magic player, Rashard Lewis, but can play a lot more defense. Is a lot better defensively than Rashard Lewis, and I think for the Magic here, just slots in right in the 4. It seems like they want to keep Wendell Carter. Mo Bamba's a free agent, he might not return, but Carter at the 5, you have Wagner at the 4 already, you have Franz there, you should be set. At the 3, sorry. So you plug in Jabari at the 4, and then you're set with that going forward. I really like this. I think it's what's going to happen. Honestly, if I were them, I'd probably look a little more into a guy like Paolo Banchero because of his ability to be a primary scorer. I think they need more of that. I believe they're the only team with a player averaging under 18 as their leader. I think their leading scorer averaged like 17. So they need a better primary scorer. I think Banchero could be that, but I do like Jabari Smith's fit here, his ability to space the floor and play defense. With the second overall pick in the 2022 NBA Draft, the Oklahoma City Thunder select Chet Holmgren out of Gonzaga, power forward, 20 years old, freshman, 7 feet tall, 195 pounds, is one of the most imposing prospects we've seen in a long time, just because it's hard to kind of compare him to anybody because he's so unique to himself, and we haven't really seen a prospect like him. 7 feet tall, 195 pounds. He's so scrawny, but he's a tough guy. Like he doesn't get thrown around in there. He's pretty tough. So he's a really good shot blocker, average almost 4 blocks a game this year at Gonzaga. So I really like him defensively as a rim protector. I think defensively he could play a lot of 5 minutes as well as playing the 4. Isn't the best perimeter defender, but isn't slow enough that it matters. So he can guard out there a little bit. If he has to guard 4s, it's not going to really matter. So I think he's a great defensive player. The Thunder need front court guys pretty badly. And I think length is great here. Like getting a guy 7 feet tall with a long wingspan is always great to have. Reminds me a lot defensively of Rudy Gobert, but can also hit the 3. I really like him as a prospect. Some people are very scared because of the frame and stuff like that, but we've seen skinny guys come in and really build themselves up, and even if he doesn't do that, Kevin Durant didn't really put on a ton of weight either, so I think he can be a really good player, and I'm interested to see how he's going to do. With the third overall pick, the Rockets select Paolo Banchero out of Duke. This is great because one of the things that goes more kind of unnoticed about Banchero is his ability to play make. He's a really good distributor of the basketball, has a really good feel for the court and understanding where people are and how people get open, and he's just really good at that aspect of the game. And with Jalen Green as well as Kevin Porter Jr. being more of kind of score first guards, having a nice kind of initiator playmaker on the wing at the forward spot is really nice. It's a luxury for this Rockets team, and I think it's a good fit. I think kind of getting him and Jalen Green to figure out who's going to take shots when might be a little difficult at first, because they are both really good scorers, and sometimes that can be kind of combative. But I think they can work together. He's a really physical scorer, 250 pounds. You know, he's going to throw people around. Reminds me a lot of a more polished Blake Griffin. Like, not quite as athletic as we saw when Blake was on the Clippers, but think about like the best moments when Blake was on Detroit. I think is very similar to what Banchero could be. Can space the floor. His three-point shot needs to become more consistent, but it looks really nice right now. Like, the form is really fluid. There's no hitch in it. So it can space the floor, can attack off the dribble, can play make for others, but isn't, and it can be physical in the post, but isn't going to probably have those poster dunks you think of when you think of Blake. But reminds me kind of like of a really high-end Blake version like we saw in Detroit. With number 4 is where the draft really starts for me, because I think the first 3 picks are kind of set in stone. This is a pick rumored that the Kings might look to trade it, but I don't think they will. I think they're going to take the pick. I think they should take the pick, just because it's hard to get good value for the 4th overall pick, like that you feel like you're getting equal value. So with Sabonis there, what are they going to do? They're not going to trade for a guy like Gobert, who's available right now. Randall's available, but it feels like a weird fit as well. You know, Jeremy Grant is gettable, but is he worth the 4th overall pick? Probably not. So I think the Kings should just keep it. And this is one where I'm switching up here. I'm going to have them go power forward Keegan Murray out of Iowa. This is one I haven't had to them before. Initially, I had Shaedon Sharpe a couple times, just because I think he's a good fit on the wing for them, but Keegan Murray just feels like a great fit next to 2 already really good players. Is really polished as a sophomore, averaged only over 20 points a game this year at Iowa without plays really being drawn up for him. As you can see here, I label him as a low maintenance scorer. He doesn't need you to do all this stuff for him. He doesn't need you to create for him. He just gets buckets. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but he just scores. Like, he doesn't need the ball in his hands all the time. He's not like a super high usage rate guy. He scores mostly off of cuts or little post moves. He's really solid as a player, can space the floor a little bit, isn't as good of a shooter as like Jabari or Chet, but isn't a bad three-point shooter by any means either. And also, he's also a willing defender. He's a versatile defender. I think at 6'8", he's probably a little undersized to guard 5s, but can easily guard 1 through 5, moves really well laterally. I like him a lot. Reminds me a lot of Pascal Siakam, because Siakam too doesn't need the ball in his hands all the time. His usage rate is never going to be like through the roof, but with his ability to cut, you know, his little spin move he has there, you know, he just gets buckets without needing the ball in his hands for a long time, and I think Keegan Murray is very similar. With Sabonis and Fox already there, I think Keegan is a smooth fit next to them, as well as having Harrison Barnes, I think, can help the Kings push for a playoff spot next year. The Detroit Pistons are on the clock at number 5, and I have them selecting Jaden Ivey out of Purdue. This is one of my favorite fits in the entire NBA draft. I think Jaden Ivey is a phenomenal fit in Detroit. I've mocked this almost every single time because I love the fit so much. 20 years old, sophomore, 6'4", 195, super athletic finisher. Like, he takes off from anywhere. You know, he'll throw down over the top of you. He'll finish through contact. But he is probably not going to be a point guard. Some people are trying to call him a point guard. Most likely he's a shooting guard for his career, but that's fine with Detroit because they already have Cade Cunningham. Confident ball handler as well. You know, he gets out on the fast break and he's not afraid of doing that either. So I really like Jaden Ivey as a slasher, as an explosive player. Smooth fit next to Cade Cunningham. Kind of yin and yang action. Cade Cunningham slow, methodical. Jaden Ivey fast, explosive. So I really like the two of them together. I think it'll really keep defenses on their toes. Reminds me a lot of young Dwayne Wade. They didn't call him the Flash for no reason. You know, he's quick out there. He's explosive. Reminds me a lot of that, and I think he's a great fit on Detroit. At number 6, I have the Indiana Pacers selecting Shaedon Sharpe out of Kentucky. Just the best player on the board at this point, if I'm being honest. I know people are concerned because he didn't play at Kentucky, but here at pick number 6, I'm going for a high-level player, and Shaedon Sharpe has the most upside. 19 years old, was a freshman at Kentucky, didn't play. 6'5", 200 pounds, above the rim finisher. You think of Shaedon Sharpe, he's going to be a high flyer. He's going to be up there, you know, whether it's put-back dunks, whether it's catching lobs, whether it's throwing down on the fast break, but he can also space the floor. I think the ability of having both of those things is really, really huge. You know, is great for his game. game. There was kind of thought that he could be the #1 overall pick next year if he had stayed in his initial class, but didn't play this year. I think kind of hurt his stock a little bit. But to me is still a really, really solid player. Is a good on-ball defender, but kind of gets lazy off the ball. Will get some steals, flash plays defensively, but needs to improve overall as a defender. But great above-the-rim finisher, as well as being able to space the floor and shoot the three. Reminds me a lot of Paul George, who is also a really good pacer, and his ability to attack the rim, throw down hard dunks, as well as hit from deep. Also very similar to a guy like Jalen Green, who we saw come out last year. Yeah, I think he's a good fit in Indiana next to Tyrese Halliburton. Another kind of slow facilitator, kind of methodical next to another explosive guy. I love having both pieces there. I think it's huge. At number 7, I have the Portland Trailblazers selecting Benedict Mathurin, small forward out of Arizona. 20 years old, sophomore, averaged 20 points a game this year at Arizona. 6'5", 205 pounds. Isn't short by any means, but isn't the tallest small forward out there either. But really long defensively, knockdown shooter. He's going to space the floor for you immediately, and he's a plus athlete. He's a really solid athlete. He'll take some risky passes sometimes that'll lead to turnovers. He needs to get that down a little bit. But his ability to space the floor as well as finish at the rim if he gets the chance, and he has defensive upside because of his length, has a bigger wingspan than his height, and just feels like a guy who is built to be a good defender. But reminds me a lot of Pacers Victor Oladipo. Oladipo was a good defensive guy, but he wasn't as good as he is now. He used to be a more offensive player than anything. Like, he was averaging over 20 points per game in Indiana, but now in Miami it was a better defender but not quite as good offensively. And I think that's a big thing here for Mathurin, is he's going to be kind of break you down isolation kind of scorer at times because he has a nice handle as well. But I think he can play some defense, get out in passing lanes, and I like his complementary fit next to a guy like Nate. At number 8, the New Orleans Pelicans are on the clock. And if you've been watching my big boards, then you'll know that this guy's been rising from the combine. And it is point guard Dyson Daniels out of the G League Ignite. 19 years old, the G Leaguer, 6'7", 195 pounds. Really tall point guard. I love to see that. I love tall guards. And his ability to kind of handle you physically if you're a smaller guard, as well as, you know, everything else he brings. The biggest thing when you think of Dyson Daniels, he's going to be a good defender from day one. That's the big thing for him, but also is a really smart playmaker, understands how to make plays for others, as well as playing really good defense. But the biggest thing that he's rising at the combine is because he shot the 3 ball really well. The biggest knock against Dyson Daniels is that people just don't know if the offense is going to come along, but he's good at basically everything else. Good defender, good playmaker, good rebounder, and it's being buzzed that maybe he's going to end up being like some top 5 pick. Like, that's how strong people are coming on to Dyson Daniels, and I think it's justified. Like, really, when you look at a 6'7" guard who can do everything, you know, except shoot the ball, but I mean, he can do almost everything on the basketball court. If he can hit the 3 ball, it'll make him even that more versatile. Reminds me a lot of the Spurs' DeJounte Murray, and his ability to, you know, play really good defense. Was all defensive member very young in his career, as well as, you know, getting out in passing lanes, getting rebounds, getting assists. DeJounte Murray almost a triple-double this year in his average. He was really, really solid, and I think Dyson Daniels will provide you a similar profile. At number 9, speaking of the Spurs, I have them selecting center Jalen Duren out of Memphis. I haven't mocked this many times just because I don't love the idea of them moving on from Jakob Poeltl, because I think Jakob Poeltl's underrated. He's probably underpaid. You're getting him at a good value. He's a center that's really solid and a guy that you can keep, but Jalen Duren is just the best player on the board for me at this point. I think it makes the most sense. With their clogging at shooting guard, too, I don't really feel comfortable taking like a guy like Johnny Davis or AJ Griffin or any guys like that. I don't think are really good fits either. So I think Jalen Duren is the move here. His ability to guard positions probably 3 through 5, his versatility defensively, his athleticism, you know, he's a really imposing force. Just has a much, much higher upside than a guy like Poeltl does. So in that aspect, I think it's probably a good pick. And you could move him maybe to a team like Charlotte to try to get back into the lottery, whether it be pick 13 or maybe just outside with pick 15. Maybe you trade Poeltl to to a center-needy team, and that's how that works out. But I think Duren next to DeJounte Murray would be a really nice pick-and-roll threat. His ability to catch lobs, block shots, and get rebounds is really great, and I think a lot of teams want that, as well as being a really good interior scorer as well. So it reminds me a lot of Bam Adebayo with his defensive versatility, ability to guard on the perimeter a little bit, as well as being good on the inside, but not as good offensively. He just doesn't have the shot that Bam does. Bam can stretch the floor a little bit, at least to like 15 feet. Jalen Duren doesn't have that yet. Hopefully he can get it, but I really like Duren, and I think that this is a high upside pick for Spurs at 9. At number 10, the Washington Wizards are on the clock, and I originally thought about going center Mark Williams because Thomas Bryant's a free agent, Montrezl Harrell's a free agent, but I had to go best player available again, and to me that's shooting guard Johnny Davis out of Wisconsin. One of the most natural scorers in this year's class, but the efficiency as well as the three-point shooting just needs to get better. 20 years old, sophomore, averaged 20 points a game this year at Wisconsin, 6'5", 195 pounds, good size for a 2-guard. Perimeter defender, he can guard really well on the perimeter, probably positions 1 through 3. He's going to be really good guarding them right away. And with Bradley Beal not being the best defender on the planet, I think this is a really good fit next to him. And he's just a natural bucket getter. He's probably going to come in, average, somewhere around 13 to 16 points a game his rookie year. Just feels like that kind of guy. But can shoot really well in the mid-range. He scores. He's just a natural scorer. But the defensive ability reminds me a lot of Chris Middleton and his ability to play defense, but also go and get his own bucket, create for himself. I think Johnny Davis is very similar to a guy like that, and I think it fits very well in this Wizards team next to Beal. All right, at number 11, the New York Knicks are on the clock, and this is another guy that's been rising. This is a guy that's shooting up people's draft boards. I think for the Ringer last week, he was a couple weeks ago, almost 3 weeks ago now, he was somewhere around 20. But now, if you check ESPN's big boards, Bleacher Report's big boards, he's coming around right inside the top 10 or right outside, and it is Malachi Branham, shooting guard out of Ohio State. I think the Knicks need a defender, and they need a guy who can shoot the ball. Malachi Branham can shoot the ball, he can get offense. The defense wasn't quite as good this year as it was when they made the playoffs, so I think getting a big thing is getting defense back, and Malachi Branham can do that. And I really like his fit next to RJ Barrett, honestly. I think that they can play the 2 and the 3. You still need a point guard at this point, but putting these two guys together in the 2 and 3 spots will be really good offensively going forward. 19 years old, freshman out of Ohio State, 6'5", 195, really good shooter this year. Wasn't a really good shooter before he got to Ohio State, but shot like 38-39% this year there. So hopefully that lives on, and he just improved his shot and can be really good there in the Garden, but is also a good defender. I think he's a good fit. Reminds me a lot of another guy that used to play in New York, Karis LeVert. I think he has a little higher upside than Karis LeVert. Can be maybe an all-star, but I don't know if he'll be there, but is a better defender than Karis is, and I think his offensive upside is similar, if not a little higher. All right, at number 12, the Thunder on the clock, and I have them selecting center Mark Williams out of Duke. One of the biggest winners of the Combine, coming in with a 7'2". That's his height. Like, they didn't think he would measure that tall, as well as a 9'9" standing reach, which would be the largest in the NBA right now, higher than guys like Boban, Taco, and even other guys. Bol it's higher than Bol as well. So 9'9" standing reach is ridiculous. He's going to be really solid as a rim protector, shot blocker, and he should be able to catch lobs really well. I think getting him in a system with really good passers like Josh Giddey, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander really opens up his ability to throw down dunks. And I think the idea of having 2 super long players, Chet Holmgren and Mark Williams, together on the floor at the same time, as well as Giddey as one of your guards, provides them with one of the longest, kind of biggest wingspan teams in the entire NBA. They should be superimposing defensively, and I think this would be huge in filling out the Thunder's front court. I think this is a big win for them, and he'd be great on the team. Reminds me a lot of Robert Williams with his athleticism, his ability to catch lobs, and deter shots at the rim. So I think he'd be a great fit in Oklahoma City. All right, the Hornets are on the clock with pick 13, and I have them selecting power forward Jeremy Sohan out of Baylor. Can guard positions 1 through 5. Might be the best defender in this draft class. Is a very, very good defender, as well as being able to play make for others. He's not a very good scorer. Like, think of Dyson Daniels with even less scoring. Like, that's the biggest thing here, is he's just not a scorer, and his scoring is probably never going to come along. Like, people don't really think that that's what he's going to do, but reminds me a lot of guys like Draymond Green, Ben Simmons, that they might not have the biggest offensive impact, but you can just feel their presence in the game with their ability to take the other team's best player, to rebound, to pass. You know, I think he's a really good fit, and having two good playmakers, LaMelo Ball and Sohan, together on the floor would be great to see, as well as getting another good defender. They need defenders on this team badly. Like, this is a huge thing for Charlotte. It's why they keep losing in the play-in. They don't have defense. Sohan brings that. I like it in Charlotte. With pick 14, the Cavs select AJ Griffin out of Duke, a guy that's falling a little bit for me just because of more and more injury concerns from high school. Missed 2 whole years of high school basketball with injuries, and it's causing him to fall down my big board as well as some other people's. So 18 years old, is a young player, 6'6", 220, elite 3-point shooter, over 45% from 3 in general, and over 50% in catch and shoot threes this year at Duke. Really solid as a shooter. Also has defensive upside. This is a profile that teams love. Like, this is a player that you want to get. Reminds me a lot of Jaylen Brown and his ability to stroke the ball, as well as playing defense, but also similar to Jimmy Butler in his defensive intensity and his ability to score on offense. It's just a prototypical 3-and-D guy that you love to have, 3-and-D plus, and I think he's a great fit here in Cleveland. They need shooting. That's the biggest thing they need, and they get it here in Griffin, a guy that slipped, and I think this is really good value for Cleveland. I like AJ a lot. I think he has the potential to be a really good player, and if he doesn't get injured, he's going to make a lot of teams ahead of this point look kind of stupid. Alright, the Charlotte Hornets are on the clock at 15. They're picking again, and I have them selecting 2-guard Ochai Agbaji out of Kansas. Again, they need defenders, so they get another one here, this time in the backcourt with Ochai Agbaji. 22 years old, is a senior, 6'5", 215, is a good perimeter shooter. Really good out there on the perimeter, as well as the ability to guard positions 1 through 3 very effectively. Is going to be a pest defensively. You know, is going to get in passing lanes, is going to get out on the floor and run, and is going to hit some transition threes as well as some threes in the half court. I really think he'd be a great backcourt fit next to LaMelo Ball, and his ability to kind of offset him with defense. Think about how great Bane is next to Ja, how Clay has been next to Steph. Getting a good defender next to a flashy guard that's not the best defender in the world is really solid, and something that they should always consider. It reminds me a lot of a guy like Desmond Bane. You know, as a guy that was in college for a long time, you know, wasn't super high as a prospect through the years, but as time went on, just got better and better and improved everything about his game. Got better defensively, got better at shooting the ball. This year at Kansas, with more offensive kind of responsibility, his defense dipped a little bit, but with less offensive responsibility in Charlotte, I think the defense should be there. Alright, at 16, I have the Atlanta Hawks selecting Tari Eason, power forward out of LSU. Right up there with Sohan as one of the best defenders in this draft class. 21 years old, sophomore, 6'7", 215. Really imposing athlete, is an athletic freak. I keep talking about it, but watch his block in the tournament if you haven't seen it. Floated and blocked that out of the air. It was great to see. Is a super hustle defender. I don't think the shot is going to stay, but honestly, this year at LSU, he shot pretty well. His freshman year, he didn't, but maybe he really did improve. If he improved as a shooter, then I think maybe he deserves to be a lottery pick. But I'm a little hesitant on the shot aspect, but the athleticism is just going to cause him to go lottery, or at least very close to lottery. So I'm going to have the Hawks select him here. They need defense. They always need more defense. But I think getting athleticism, a guy that Trey can throw lobs to, a nice pick-and-roll partner for Trey would be really nice as well. This also allows them to maybe move on from John Collins, a guy who they've been looking to trade for seemingly a couple of years now, and Tari Eason going to be a lot cheaper, obviously. Reminds me of Jeremy Grant because of his defensive versatility, but not quite the offensive player that Grant is. Alright, the Houston Rockets on the clock with pick 17. They went Paolo with their first pick. I want to have them go a guy with defensive upside here. Ousmane Dieng out of France, 19 years old, international player, 6'10", 200 pounds, really nice frame. Needs to fill out a little bit weight-wise, I think. I think ideally you probably want him more around 215. But is really confident as a ball handler and a good playmaker. A thing I talked about with Paolo is their need for more playmakers, their ability to pass the ball, guys that can create for others, and getting Banchero as well as Zhang, I think provides them a really good boost of that, and it reminds me a lot of Brandon Ingram without as much of an offensive ability. Brandon Ingram, basically a 25-point per game guy. I don't think Zhang is going to get there. Maybe he's something like a 15, 16-point per game guy, but he's going to have more assists, and he's going to be a pretty solid defender at the NBA level. I like him here for Houston. At 18, the Bulls run the clock. I have them going EJ Liddell. It's a pick I have mocked for them multiple times, but it's just really, really solid. Averaged 3 blocks a game as a forward this year at Ohio State. 21 years old. As a junior, got better every single year at shooting and defense, and I think that's huge. It's huge to show that he can continue to get better because it doesn't look like it's slowing down, and I think he'd be a great front court piece for them off the bench. The biggest thing that Chicago really needs is forward depth. They're running Derrick Jones Jr., Troy Brown off the bench. They're having to put Javonte Green with forward minutes. So I think getting Liddell there would be huge for them. He's a really good defender. When Lonzo was there, they were one of the best defensive teams in the league, but without him, it just wasn't the same. So I think getting Liddell there can help spell some of the injury concerns that the team has and just be a really good defender for them, as well as being able to space the floor, shoot the ball. Something we don't see as much from a guy like Patrick Williams, who's a good defender, but doesn't shoot it quite as well as Liddell does. So I think he reminds me a lot of Matisse Thybulle with his defensive ability, his ability to block shots as a smaller player, but has a lot more offensive upside with his ability to shoot the ball and take players one-on-one. The Timberwolves are on the clock at 19, and I have them selecting point guard Ty Washington out of Kentucky. In the lineups they started towards the end of the year, they were moving out Patrick Beverley as well as D'Lo in the starting 5, and that left them really short in the backcourt off the bench, running out guys like Jordan McLaughlin a lot as their backup point guard minutes, and I think they can do better than that. I just do. I think Ty would be really nice as a point guard off the bench. 19 years old, freshman, 6'4", 195, really good facilitator as well as being able to hit in the mid-range. Hasn't quite as extended his shooting ability to the three-point yet. Needs to improve that, but right now can be a good kind of energetic scorer and passer off the bench. I really like his fit on the Wolves, and he reminds me a lot of Emmanuel Quickley with what he brings for the Knicks and his ability to kind of be a spark plug scorer off the bench as well as being a good shooter, obviously with deeper range than Ty, but being a sneaky facilitator as well. Kind of fits that Lowry, Chris Paul mold to a much lesser extent with his ability to play defense, to facilitate and hit in the mid-range more than the three-point. Alright, at 20, I have the Spurs selecting Jalen Williams, small forward out of Santa Clara. The first pick, I had them take Jalen Duren, and that was a good pick for them, I think, but they also need forwards. A big thing for the Spurs here is getting forwards. They have Keldon Johnson, but outside of that, in the forward positions, I don't feel super confident about anything they have. So I think getting Jalen Williams here, a guy that's really risen throughout the pre-draft process, a guy that can knock down threes as well as being able to play some solid defense and being a good rebounder. He's a really solid rebounder as well. I think it would be great for San Antonio. With Keldon, he doesn't space the floor quite as much, so I think getting Jalen Williams out there to hit the three ball would be really solid. Reminds me a lot of Raptors OG Anunoby, and that he came in kind of raw but should improve every year in his ability to play defense and shoot the ball. Really good 3-and-D guy, but is a little raw, but I like his fit on the Spurs. At 21, the Nuggets are on the clock, and I have them selecting shooting guard Jaden Hardy out of the G League Ignite. Was once projected a top 10 pick, and if I know anything about how the Nuggets draft, they're not afraid to go upside. We've seen it with picks like Michael Porter Jr., which worked out really well. Bol didn't work out quite as well, but they took, again, a high guy, Highland, last year with his ability to, break down players one-on-one. They're not afraid to gamble on high upside players, and I think they do it again here in taking Jaden Hardy. He's really, really natural as a scorer. Like, he goes out, he gets buckets. He's a bucket getter through and through. But the efficiency wasn't there in the G League. The biggest knock against him is that he was just really inefficient. If the Nuggets can work on that, get him more efficient, help him, get better looks, and I think playing on a team with Nikola Jokic is going to get you the best looks you can possibly get. So his efficiency should go up just by playing with a guy like Nikola Jokic. I think is a great fit for him, and I really think it's a place where he could thrive. And I think that they should look to try to replace Will Barton in the starting lineup with a better two guard, and Hardy definitely provides higher upside, and if he turns out, this could be one of the best value picks in the entire draft. Reminds me a lot of Bradley Beal and his ability to score and get buckets. I think Hardy is a little more athletic than Beal is, but he needs to get more efficient. That's the biggest thing. But I think really high upside, and I think it's going to be interesting how he turns out. At 22, I have the Grizzlies selecting point guard Kennedy Chandler out of Tennessee. Really short. 6'1" is being a little generous of me. You could say he's 6 foot. Some were even concerned he's 5'11", but I think 6'1" is a nice thing to put him at. But Kennedy Chandler is a guy that's very undersized. 6'1", 170 pounds. Is going to be small. You know, he's a pest defensively. He's going to get up in you, and he's going to try to get steals, but at times he's still going to get bullied on that end just because of his size, but is a speedy guard. And the bigger reason why I think they should go a guy like Kennedy Chandler is Tyus Jones for agency. I think probably Tyus Jones priced himself out of what the Grizzlies want to give him, so I think that they should go and get a guy who can fill that backup point guard spot, can pass, but can also score, and I think Chandler's that guy. I really like his fit here. Reminds me a lot of guys like Tyrese Maxey and Darius Garland, both kind of undersized guys, but with their speed, with their kind of shiftiness, can get through the defense and still score. I really like his upside, and I think he's a good fit in Memphis. Alright, the Sixers are on the clock at 23. This one with an asterisk because this could be the Nets pick. The Nets technically have rights, but it's being rumored that it looks like they're going to defer that pick to 2023, and that they would rather, sorry I'm stuttering here, that's horrible, and that they would rather have the Sixers pick this year and have them pick next year. So this one's going to be for the Sixers, and I'm going to have them go center Christian Koloko out of Arizona. The big thing they need is backup big men. They're running out, you know, guys like Charles Brown this year, the cartoon name, and Charles Bassey, who's okay, but he's a second-round pick. It's just, it wasn't great to see out there, so I think getting Christian Koloko out of Arizona would be really nice as a backup five. Athletic player, can finish at the rim, but can also play really good defense, be a strong rim protector, and a good rebounder. Shot really well at the combine and the star drill, but I'm kind of concerned that's not going to last just because we saw no shooting in Arizona, so I wouldn't count on floor spacing as a big thing with him, but his ability to rebound, play defense, and score on the interior reminds me a lot of the Hawks' Clint Capella, and I think that would be a great upside guy to get off the bench and kind of spell Embiid at times because he plays so many minutes. Alright, the Bucks are on the clock at pick 24, and I have them selecting shooting guard Bryce McGowan out of Nebraska. Now the Bucks ran Grayson Allen as their starting two guard for a lot of this year, and he was solid in that spot, don't get me wrong, but I just don't think he's the highest upside guy in the world, you know, isn't the youngest guy out there. So I think getting a guy with higher upside who could potentially be a much better starting two guard in the league would be really great, and I think McGowan's kind of embodies the NBA's two guard right now. 19 years old, freshman, 6'5", 180 pounds, is just a dynamic scorer, can score at all three levels, and is a really fluid athlete. It's not super vertical, but with the speed, with the side-to-side lateral movement, and his explosiveness, is just a really nice athlete and is going to wow you with that. And he reminds me a lot offensively of Zach LaVine, and his ability to shoot the ball, hit little sidestep jumpers, as well as drive by and finish at the rim. But McGowan's more likely than not is going to be throwing down poster dunks. That's just not part of his game. But the rest of LaVine's offensive package is very similar, and I really like the idea of a high upside guy like that on the Bucks. Alright, at 25, Spurs back on the clock again, and I have them selecting an international player, power forward Nikola Jovic out of Serbia. The Spurs have a long history of very good international players, and I don't think they'd be afraid to do it again. They've already gotten two good players for their system with Duran and Williams, and they can kind of, you know, go for a swing here with Nikola Jovic. So 19 years old, international player, 6'10", 225. The biggest concern I'd have about him is defense. He's just not a good defender, doesn't move very well laterally, he's going to get beat on drives a lot. But as a talented playmaker, can pass the ball really well as being a scorer off the ball. He doesn't need the ball in his hands all the time, can kind of catch and shoot, as well as having, you know, kind of screen actions where he comes off of those and hits. So I don't think he needs the ball all the time. but just knows how to score, has a knack for it. Reminds me a lot of Danilo Gallinari, where you're not going to run a lot of offense through him, but Gallinari has just always been able to score. So I like the idea of that on the Spurs, and it's kind of an upside swing, but I think it could be a good fit. The Dallas Mavericks are on the clock with pick 26, and I have them selecting shooting guard / small forward Hugo Bassan out of France. The biggest thing I think with the Mavericks is obviously center, but I don't think that there's a great center on the board right now I really feel comfortable taking. And then the other thing is wing scoring. Like, they have Luka, they have Brunson, they have Dinwiddie at the point guard spot, but on the wing they just don't have a ton of scores. Tim Hardaway Jr. is hurt all the time, it feels like. Dorian Finney-Smith, while being a really good defender, just doesn't have the scoring upside that you'd probably want out there. And Davis Bertans just leaves a lot to be desired out there on the wing when he's out there. So I think getting a confident scorer with Hugo Bassan would be really nice to see. Is also a really flashy passer, which I think would be cool to see next to Luka Doncic. Two guys that can pass the ball really well and like to have a little flair to it too. I think being an international guy, Luka would take him right under his wing and would help him a lot with the NBA game. And it was one of the better players in the NBL this year. I just believe in talent. I believe in his talent. And I think he's going to be a good NBA player. Reminds me a little bit of Bogdan Bogdanovic with his ability to shoot the ball and his confidence. I think he's going to be a little better than Bogdan, hopefully, but I think he's a good fit in Dallas. They need confident wing scorers, and Hugo embodies that. At 27, I have the Miami Heat selecting point guard Dalen Terry out of Arizona. Played a lot of point guard for them this year. Is a little big for a point guard. 6'6", 195 pounds. Is a good defender, just really fits what the Heat want, that really Heat mentality. With his ability to play defense, as well as the high effort, the hustle you're going to see from him. He's going to score because of his hustle. That's the biggest thing for Terry. He's not the most naturally gifted scorer, but with his effort, with his hustle, he's going to end up getting buckets. I like the idea of him off the bench next to Tyler Hero. We saw some disappointing games from Lowry in the playoffs this year, as well as Gabe Vincent leaving a lot to be desired. So I think having a really solid backup point guard would be huge for them to kind of spell Lowry and take some of the toll off of him, because he is getting up there, and I think the minutes is a big reason why we saw him struggle the way he did. So it reminds me a lot of Iguodala on the Sixers, with his ability to be athletic, show a lot of hustle, be a good defender, just do all the dirty work, as well as being able to score a little bit. I think he's a good fit on the Heat here. Alright, the Golden State Warriors are on the clock with pick 28, and I have them selecting point guard Andrew Nembhard out of Gonzaga. Was one of the standouts from the Combine with his dominance of the scrimmages, just scored at will at the scrimmages, looked like one of the best players there, looked very, very dominant, and it was surprising to a lot of people because he felt like kind of a late second round pick, a guy that maybe, wouldn't even get drafted, who knew? But Nembhard was really, really impressive, and I think it's going to shoot up his draft stock. Is an underrated scorer. We didn't see it a ton in college because of, his teammates, whether it be Drew Timme, Chet Holmgren. He had some other guys there in his time there as well who are very good scorers. So he didn't have to be a great scorer there, but he is a good passer. And for the Warriors running out a backup point guard of Damian Lee, I just don't like it, man. Damian Lee, cool guy. Like, I have nothing against the dude, but just it leaves a lot to be desired as a backup point guard. I think you can do a lot better. That's why they took Nico Mannion. Unfortunately, that didn't work out. I think they go for it again here and get Andrew Nembhard. Could be a really good backup point guard off the bench. Reminds me a lot of Tyus Jones with his ability to see the floor, play some defense, but also be an underrated scorer at times. Can do that, and I think he's a good fit here for Golden State. Alright, the Grizzlies are on the clock at 29, and I have them selecting shooting guard Blake Wesley out of Notre Dame. A guy that is very, very good as a scorer, as well as a ball handler. Elite handle very similar to Bones Highland in his ability to break down defenders one-on-one. Kind of feels like kind of a street ball handle, which I really like. Freshman, 6'3", 185, was one of the better players on a bad team, and just knows how to put the ball in the basket. Reminds me a lot of Tyler Hero as a bench scorer, a guy that can come in and give you, a good 15-plus points off the bench. I think him next to Zaire Williams could provide them some nice scoring punch off the bench. Maybe Zaire continues to start, but I think if he's starting, maybe Dylan Brooks is off the bench, and both of them good scorers as well. So I think that it could be a really interesting fit in Memphis. And then with the last pick of the first round, the Oklahoma City Thunder select MarJon Beauchamp out of the G League Ignite. They already got two very good front court players in Chet and Mark Williams to fill out their front court for me here. So I think they go athletic upside. MarJon Beauchamp out of the G League Ignite. 200 pounds, 6'5", good on-ball defender. Who doesn't love defense? Teams always love to see that. As well as being a good rebounder. It's just a very, very good athlete. We'll throw down some highlight dunks here and there. And I think getting him out, you know, on the perimeter off the bench would be great to see. Really athletic highlight plays, and just a high upside guy who could end up not being a lot, but could also be super, super talented. So this is an upside pick as well, and I think one the Thunder can afford to make. I like the fit, and I think it's a good pick here at number 30. Alright, that's going to do it for this mock draft. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, think about liking, think about subscribing to the channel. We're trying to hit 2,000 by the end of the summer, so I hope you enjoyed the video. But that's going to be it for me today. I think there'll probably be a couple more mock drafts. We're only 3 weeks away, so I think we'll do one at 2 weeks away and one at 1 week away. So hopefully, again, that you really enjoyed this mock. But that's going to be it for me today. I hope you have a good rest of your day. Peace.